Hello, hello, this is Fear Dragon coming at you with day number 2 of Breaking Out. Today we are going to be covering the Zerg versus Zerg of Team Extraterrestrials JowJ. So let's go ahead and jump in and introduce the players that are involved in this game, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the program as we spawn down here in the bottom right hand corner on top of the red Zerg player on the map, Polar Knight LE. It is going to be, of course, the red Zerg player, Android. And Android is actually clearly a robotic form. Not exactly a bot. He's not a robot playing StarCraft, but just clearly out for blood and definitely going to be relentless, I'm sure. And his opponent is going to be up here in the top side of Polar Knight as the blue Zerg player. He's going to be representing Team Extraterrestrials. It is the 22-year-old American Zerg player from Texas. It is Extraterrestrials JowJ. JowJ, a really fantastic and nice and humble guy. I highly recommend, if in case you did not catch yesterday's event from Monday, it was the interview with Team Extraterrestrials JowJ. Go ahead and check that out. He gave a lot of insight on kind of what he thought was going on in the meta game, kind of how he is in StarCraft, where he thinks his strengths and weaknesses lie. But we're just going to kind of go ahead and take a look at this game to get a feel for that. So right now, we do end up seeing Android actually going for that pool first, whereas JowJ immediately just kind of opening up with a hatchery first. Now, the hatchery is a little bit further away on this map, and it's going to be kind of interesting because one thing JowJ was talking about during that interview was he was saying, you know, he feels much more comfortable as long as he can get to the later stages of ZvZ. Right now, his main concern is dealing with a lot of those early game aggression pushes, like making a ton of speed Zerglings and just going all in with it. So he's going to have to be a little bit careful if Android decides to do something like that. Of course, getting that earlier spawning pool does mean he can kind of crank out a little bit of that earlier Zergling production. But, of course, getting this Gas Geyser is also going to allow him to start getting up that Zergling speed sometime in the near future. Both the Gas Geysers pretty similarly timed, but, of course, JowJ is going to be mainly behind on the spawning pool. Not the biggest deal in the world, but it does make a small little difference in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, just talking a little bit more about what JowJ was saying, he was actually saying that he really did end up favoring the Mutalisk style of play in this matchup. He felt like it was the strongest way to play the matchup, and as long as he can get there, he feels pretty confident in his late game. So we'll have to see if he can hold off any potential aggression that Android, the ruthless killing machine, if he can defend against any kind of aggression from him, or if Android is going to be able to overcome him. We do see the first set of 2 Zerglings on the way from JowJ, whereas it looks like actually no Zerglings being made from Android just quite yet. So looks like his killing instincts have not actually started just quite yet. His programming has not told him it is time for that. So JowJ's going to have a little bit of leniency in that. He's just instead going to have to deal with these queens being actually very aggressive, trying to pick off this Overlord. The Overlord is probably going to get to the high ground, though, just in time. But actually, Android does have an Overlord over here, so if he actually so chose to, he could have just kind of moved it over here and kept chasing that Overlord, but, you know, not going to end up doing that. Wants to make sure he gets back to his hatchery to start those injects again. In the meanwhile, taking a look over here at JowJ, he is getting up that Zergling speed, both the Zergling speeds pretty similarly timed, and is actually going to be throwing down that the Baneling Nest. Baneling Nest going down, probably a bit more of a defensive one, considering he only really has 1 Gas Geyser, and yeah, he's mining with 3 guys in it, but I don't expect him to be ultra super aggressive right now, especially considering we can see Android finishing up that Baneling Nest just a tad bit earlier. And we do end up having a Spine Crawler going down from Android. So it looks like Android not opting to be super duper aggressive right now. Just going to be moving out with these 2 Zerglings. Of course, the Spine Crawler is the cost of 6 Zerglings. And actually, JowJ going to be the one being a bit aggressive over there. Does manage to pick off one of his opponent's Zerglings and actually gets a little bit of a health advantage. More Zerglings starting to stream in. He does have to be a bit careful, though, because it looks like the advantage is in favor of Android going to have to retreat. But whoa, where did all these Zerglings come from? Getting a nice surround over on Android's Zerglings, and that is going to put an end to that. And now Android going to have to be very, very careful because there are a lot of Banelings coming out. It looks like I spoke a little bit too soon. JowJ going to start to get very, very aggressive, as we can see Behind this, he's droning up, but is this going to be enough? Is it going to be able to do the damage he needs to? He's going to go after that spine crawler, but the banelings are morphing in from Android. A decent hit goes off, and he is going to have to be careful, though, because now is JowJ's turn to come in with the banelings. He's starting to split up those banelings, trying to get some good hits, and it looks like they trade baneling for baneling, but the spine crawler does go down from the baneling hits. It looks like JowJ's going to have to retreat after the queen goes down, though, and that is a nice little win for JowJ. He managed to take out that queen, managed to take out the spine crawler, and now we can see that behind this, because he was droning up, he's sitting at 29 drones to 30 drones, only behind by 1 drone, but it shouldn't be the biggest deal in the world as long as he can actually defend with these banelings. Wow, a pretty nice hit over on that baneling over there, and with that, I think he should actually be able to defend a-okay, unless Android decides to get super duper crazy. He's morphing in a couple of banelings and continuing to rally out additional zerglings. We'll have to see, is he going to continue to make zerglings? No, going to be starting to add on those gas geysers and actually get up some spine crawlers. In the meanwhile, Joe just kind of trying to zone out his opponent with these banelings. Look like those zerglings managing to get the run by straight over to the main base. This means that he's going to see everything. He's going to see the gas timings and everything. He does end up losing a ton of those zerglings, though, to those baneling hits. And whoa, JowJ actually just barely managed to keep a ton of those drones alive. A really big baneling hit going off over there. This is what we were talking about. JowJ really wants to work on the execution of those early game zergling baneling aggression, both from himself as well as, of course, defending against them. And it looks like for the meanwhile, he's managed to do an okay job. Not too far behind in terms of, you know, drone count, only really behind by 2 and actually just catching up right now. But at the same time, you have to remember, Android definitely has a bit of a gas advantage. He has 4 gas geysers already down and finished up. JowJ, on the other hand, just barely starting to mine from it, trying to grab this 3rd expansion. Doesn't look like he's going to be able to get it. The baneling does explode on a single zergling, unfortunately. Not the best trade, and is going to have to cancel that. But a few zerglings coming in just a little bit too late to the party, just saying, oh, wait, where'd the hatchery go? I thought that there was a party over here. Was going to go ahead and party on the queen, you know, hit on all those nice little ladies over there, but unfortunately, party was crashed by a couple of Androids' killer zerglings. And in the meanwhile, Android does have his own 3rd kind of going up right now, and it looks like Android does not have the banelings ready actually in time to defend against these zerglings of JowJ. So JowJ's going to be able to get a cancel off on his opponent's hatchery. Even managed to pick off the drone. Nice little touch over there, and the baneling is going to finish up. It's going to get a huge explosion and get more or less all of the zerglings that were over there from JowJ, but it looks like at the same time JowJ managing to defend his own 3rd expansion. So JowJ taking a little bit of a lead in that sense, but we end up seeing the important thing that's going to be coming out right now beyond just the speedling is going to be the spire timing. The spire is going down for both of these players, and it looks like both these players splitting up their units a little bit, just trying to pull each other apart with these zerglings, and we end up seeing the banelings really making the difference for these 2 players right now. And JowJ going to be looking to do a nice little run by over here to the 3rd once again, but looks like Android is on top of it, going to be over here just in time to actually pick off all these zerglings without too much of a hassle. Yeah, even going to trap those zerglings in. A nice little touch from Android. 2 of them will live to tell the tale to their friends over here, and of course JowJ could just turn around and try and do a little bit extra damage, but ends up not doing so. Just going to go ahead and pull all the way back at home. Going to use these banelings actually to lead the charge and try and defend against any kind of zergling aggression. But he does have to be a little bit careful, though, because if those zerglings decide to go around the opposite way, there are multiple paths on this map, could actually take some damage. But now we end up seeing, looks like the spires have finished up. And of course, JowJ not quite able to make as many of the mutiles immediately off the bat, just because he has invested a little bit more into some of those banelings a little bit later on. It looks like those banelings getting target fired down by all those mutiles. A nice play from Android. Does manage to defend his 3rd, and of course secure a nice little lead in the mutilist count, as we end up seeing actually 11 mutilists to just the 8 of JowJ. JowJ's still producing a couple more, and is going to have to be a little bit careful, though, as he is going to be planting down some of those spore crawlers and whatnot to try and defend against his opponent's mutils. Make sure he has a bit of that defender's advantage. But these are the zergling run-bys we heard JowJ talking about. He loves to do these, and it's so much fun to watch. We end up seeing a couple of those drones on the gas geysers being picked off, and even though all the zerglings go down, I would happily trade zerglings for drones almost any day of the week. Both these players sitting at a pretty comfortable 50 drones, but JowJ going up a little bit more, because on those 3 bases you do want to get a handful more just to be able to mine some of that extra minerals. Of course, the gas geysers going to be immediately saturated, just because gas is so important in ZvZ Muta versus Mutalist. Now let's take a look at the mutals counts. We have 13 for JowJ and 16 for Android. So Android definitely taking the lead in the mutals count. Is honestly looking pretty good right now, especially with this +1 missile or flyer attacks actually going up right now. We're gonna have to see whether or not JowJ is doing the same thing. It looks like JowJ going for the armor first, and honestly, from what I understand, you do want to go for that armor upgrade first. So it looks like it might be a little bit of a mistake from Android, unless he does know something that I do not know, which is entirely possible. I mean, I'm not a huge Zerg player, and you know, sometimes I cannot lie, ZvZ looks a little bit like bugs fighting, and can't be too far off on that, but it looks like JowJ gonna continue to send his bugs out to pick off some of those ground bugs that can't really attack back. This is like the 15-year-olds picking on the 2-year-olds over at the playground, and suddenly their parents come in and are chasing away all those little 15-year-olds with sticks, and that is a very, very scary thought. Those angry dads are coming back, but now we end up seeing, looks like the armor upgrade has actually finished up for JowJ. Meanwhile, the weapons upgrade is finished up for Android, and JowJ actually taking the lead in that mutals versus mutals engagement. It helps to have those Zerglings over there underneath the actual mutals to absorb some of those bouncing shots, and it looks like on the ground, JowJ is also going to reign supreme, has a ton of Zerglings, but he does not have enough mutals left alive to actually pursue and do any additional damage. Is going to have to back out, so it looks like this game is going to continue on, and honestly, JowJ is starting to look to be in a better and better position. He's only behind about 2 or 3 mutals, but of course 6 mutals are going to be popping very, very soon, so pretty even mutals counts, but the armor upgrade for JowJ is really going to be playing the big part in this right now, until of course he ends up getting that +1 missile attacks, or sorry, the flyer attacks, and his opponent gets the +1 armor upgrade. So very soon they'll be back even on upgrades, and we'll have to see whether or not the positional play is going to be able to make the difference in this game. In the meanwhile, looks like we do end up having just, you know, regular old mining going on. Of course, Lair still going to be the tech of choice. Not really throwing down the infestation pit from either of these players. It doesn't look like it, although we do have some spore calls going down. But hold that thought, we do have a big engagement going on, and it looks like Android going to be feeling like he has to be chased back a little bit. There are a lot of Zerglings, but also importantly, there are those Banelings that can get some big hits off. If they can get the big hits off, he can actually absorb a lot more of those mutal shots, but it looks like Android might be taking the advantage in this engagement, as it looks like there are just too many of those mutals right now, and those mutals actually sitting on +1/+1. Meanwhile, JowJ has not finished up his +1 weapons upgrade for his mutals, but although it looks like Android overcommitting with a handful of these mutals, he might be making a big mistake trying to split up his mutals, going after the third, and oh no, actually it looks like Android missing a bit of an opportunity. The mutals count is even up just a little bit, but there is still an overwhelming number of Zerglings for Android. How in the world can JowJ try and pull this off? JowJ taking a lot of damage, and now there are going to be some speed Zerglings chasing him all the way over into the natural expansion. Of course, this 4th expansion most likely going to fall to all of these Zerglings and the Mutalists, and in the meanwhile, Android grabbing a 4th expansion of his own. JowJ is definitely on the back foot right now, but Android gonna have to retreat for now. Still though, being able to kill off that 4th expansion, much better of a situation than JowJ, who's basically sitting on 3 base right now versus the soon-to-be 4th base Zerg player. And of course, those 4th expansions are very, very important, because you want those 7th and 8th gas geysers, because you look at this over here, we only have 700 gas in this one, 1,300. Still got a good amount of gas in this 2nd gas geyser, but still, you want to get those extra gas geysers up, because your main base is going to be running very, very low soon, and you want to stay on that 3 base economy of gas. So we'll have to see. It looks like another cancel. Oh, unfortunately, JowJ does not manage to get the cancel out, but he's going to be going on the offensive right now with all these mules going over into the main base. There aren't any spine crawlers over here, and this is a little bit of a corner that Android had cut, and actually we end up seeing the drones starting to fall. What is he going to be target firing down? Gets the queen and goes straight after the spire, and it looks like Android completely out of position to actually deal with this. He's just going to go for it and see how much damage he can do himself. In the meanwhile, the spire does end up falling. JowJ going to be looking for a couple more targets to actually go after. In the meanwhile, these Zerglings definitely favoring JowJ over here, but the mutals count is definitely going to make the big difference over here. Android easily going to be able to clean up a lot of JowJ's Zerglings, and JowJ going to be in a bit of a precarious situation, but it looks like it's basically a base trade at this situation. The only issue is JowJ sitting on +1/+1 with 26 mutalists, and you know, he does have +2 missile attacks, or sorry, flyer attacks going up, but the spire is going to get sniped for him as well. So this is turning into a base trade with even upgraded Mutalisks. But the only issue is Android has more. He has 5 more Mutalisks, and that might not seem like a big deal, although it'll mean less actually if some of those Spore Callers manage to get off a couple of good hits. And it looks like, wait, hold on, I have been misreading this. JowJ is actually the one with 29 Mutalisks at this point now, and it actually looks like Android, the one with 20 Mutalisks. So it looks like JowJ actually might be the one at a big advantage right now. And this could actually work out very, very well, but he does have to be careful. He has to make sure he doesn't lose too many of these drones, because if somehow these players can get up another Spire or something, I mean, they both are remaining on their layer tech, so they can actually throw down those Spires, then Android could actually just kill off the economy, maybe get up a handful more Mutalisks, maybe even get up a Queen or two, get up a Spore Caller, and just defend that mining base, and he might actually be in a good position. But it looks like JowJ has pretty much neutered the economy. We can see 6 drones to 7, and GG gets called as Android realizes he has too few Mutalisks to deal with this, and JowJ is gonna take the game. So really well played by both those players. It really looked like Android was in a great position for different parts of that game, especially when he was constantly denying that 4th expansion from JowJ, but JowJ was able to go for that base trade, which seemed like a bit of a risky situation. I mean, at least for a while, he did have the lower Mutalisks count, but at some point during all of that base trading aggression, it looked like somehow JowJ managed to turn it around, managed to get up a handful, just 4 or 5 more Mutalisks, and on even upgrades, managed to actually turn that around, going after just the Spire and then the drones. Whereas I believe that Android was actually kind of going after those expansions, trying to pick those off, and it didn't end up working out quite as well for him, although he did manage to pick off a lot of those drones as well. So very well played. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hopefully you guys will decide to tune in tomorrow for another exciting episode. And I believe that we'll be looking at either, I think it's a ZVP tomorrow. We'll have to double check on that, but it is going to be on the Team Liquid calendar, so please tune in for that. And if you're watching this from the VODs, please wait until the video is out over on youtube.com/FearDragon64. And actually, if you're watching the VODs, you can also tune in live at 9 p.m. Pacific time for these games to be broadcasted live on Twitch. It happens just a little bit before the videos come out. And you can do that over at twitch.tv/FearDragon64. With that being said, congratulations to Extraterrestrials JowJ on his ZvZ victory. Hopefully you guys will decide to tune in tomorrow for that Zerg versus Protoss. Might be a Zerg versus Terran, so don't quote me on it. But I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you guys so much.